Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode for the Coaching Conversations podcast. Now, we are on Stitcher, we are on iTunes, and multiple different channels. Please check us out. Now, one of the things that you'll get out of our podcast episodes is a lot of content, a lot of strategy. It's not fluff, it's not concept, yet we really want you to engage with the content and let us know your feedback. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's topics you'd love to have us address, we would love to share them with you. Let us know your impact and let us know your feedback. You know, for the past 30 years, I've been teaching leaders how to coach, and running alongside that career has been my passion for coaching boys volleyball. And I'm still amazed, even to this day, going to volleyball matches and listening to people. Now, I happen to be certified in DISC, which is a behavioral assessment along with emotional intelligence. And I think about watching these parents, and I watch them and I hear them. And recently I was sitting next to a gentleman, and I actually went to a match by myself. I didn't go. I didn't have a kid in the match. I didn't have a coach that I was rooting for. I was literally, just watching for the love of the sport. And this gentleman, just every play that went against his kid's team, would complain, he'd yell, he'd scream, he'd yell things at the ref. And he finally turned to me and he said, "Man, this officiating's terrible, isn't it?" I didn't say anything at first, and then I said something to the effect of, "Do you have a kid on the team?" He said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "Okay." I said, "You really seem to know a lot about volleyball." And he said, "Oh, yeah, I do. I've had 3 kids play." And I said, "Yeah, but what's your personal experience?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, what's your experience? Did you play? Did you coach?" And he goes, "Well, no, I didn't play. I didn't coach." I said, "Have you ever officiated a match?" He said, "No. Why?" And I could see his face change. I could see his tone. I could hear his tone change. I said, "Oh, interesting." I didn't combat him. I didn't confront him. I did everything with a smile. He said, "Why did you ask?" And I said, "Are you really open to that feedback?" He said, "Yeah, sure, I really am." I said, "Okay, great." I said, "Have you ever officiated a match and had somebody yell at you for 2 straight hours for about 30, 40, $50? He said, "No." I said, "You should do it. Do it just one time, not 20 times, not 100 times, just once. And I promise you, you will never, ever yell at an official again." I got up and I walked away. And the reason I walked away is he asked me questions. I didn't offer him advice. I didn't confront him. See, that's the gift of coaching. See, I believe what is really at play here is something called emotional interpretation. See, a lot of times we label things, and I hear parents who will complain about other parents. Well, they're living through their kids. That's not really what's going on. What's going on is I see my kid struggling. Something unfair is happening to my child. I want to fix it. I want to complain about it. When my kid isn't getting enough playing time, I got to go see the coach. Why? I made this joke to a friend of mine who kept saying, "Yeah, I went to the coach. I went to the coach. I went to the coach." I go, "What happens when you die?" He goes, "What?" I go, "Like when you drop dead, do you leave notes for someone to go in to the boss and fight for your kid?" He said, "Well, no, he'll be an adult then." I go, "Yet he's learning adult behaviors right now. How is he going to advocate for himself? How is he going to have a conversation with his boss and himself? And how is he going to be objective about his boss? Because every time something goes against him, all he's heard is, 'It's unfair to my child.'" This gentleman, my friend, looked stunned. And that's why I chose to have the conversation with that gentleman at the volleyball match. And as I was walking out to my car, the gentleman from the volleyball match came up to me and he said, "I really was thinking about what you said." And the reason I knew he was, so when I sat across from him, I sat on the other side of the gym, basically saying, "I don't want to sit next to you." It was not pleasant. Because at one point during the conversation, I said to him, "Do you feel like you're an objective person?" He goes, "I do." I go, "Not once have you complained about the officiating when the call was in your kid's team's favor." So when I was walking out, he came up to me and he said, "I really thought about what you said. I've never had someone bring that up to me in that context." And, I said, "Good." I said, these guys don't make a lot of money. It's not fun being screamed at, for 6, 7, 8 hours a day, standing on your feet. And by the way, guess who yells at him? People who have never coached or played. And he goes, yeah, you're right. Now, did I cure this gentleman? No. See, I think the challenge we have, or the challenge that parents have, and we all have it, we see our kids struggle. We want to create a path for them. And what we have to do is really help them find skill sets so they can create their own path. One of the greatest things kids can have today is a bad teacher. One of the greatest things kids can have today is a bad coach. Here's why. It teaches resilience. I still think one of the greatest books ever is by a woman, Angela Duckworth, Grit. And she talks about the number one determinant of success is grit, guts, resilience, intensity, tenacity. It is overcoming change and challenge and persevering over a period of time. Gosh, what happens? When a parent sees that a kid's not playing, how many times have we heard these horror stories about getting the parents together in a petition and we've got to have the coach removed? Are you kidding me? What are you going to do when you go into the workplace? Now, somebody might argue that. You know, I have talked to people, one being my sister-in-law, who once told me a story of a parent who actually came into a post-college, not internship, post-college job interview. And she literally looked at the mother and said, if you sit down, looked at the child, who's a college graduate, if you have your mother sit down, this interview will be over instantly. You will never be hired here. Both people sat down. My sister-in-law got up, closed the folder, and guess what the parent did? The threats come. Just like, I'm going to call the athletic director. She said, well, I'm going to go to HR. My sister-in-law looked at the mother and said, who do you think just told me to do what I just did? And walked out of the meeting. Think about that child's lack of capability of having their own conversations and advocating for themselves. Youth sports is one of the greatest predictors of behaviors in the corporate workplace. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.